I kicked the door open with my shoulder, Grandma's small weight cradled against my chest. Champagne glasses froze midair. The fire hissed as if it knew what I was about to say. My badge caught the firelight. I met every pair of eyes in that warm room and let my voice go cold. 6 words measured and metallic split the air. The laughter died. 2 hours earlier, my patrol car idled at the curb on Maple Street, engine ticking as it cooled. Christmas lights stitched porch to porch. Dispatch was quiet, too quiet, so the guys at the precinct tossed me the same line, "Go home, LT. It's Christmas Eve." I told them I didn't have a home to go to. Not really, but Grandma did, and I wanted to see her face when I said surprise. I parked half a block away so the old Ford wouldn't announce me. Breath left my lungs in pale ribbons. 31 degrees is the truth trying to hide. The air cuts your nose and makes your hands feel borrowed. Snow squeaked under my boots as I crossed the yard I grew up mowing. Through the window, the living room blazed with the kind of warmth money buys. I saw them in silhouettes that used to mean safety. Dad wide as a wall, Mom's helmet of Christmas hair, my brother Tommy mid-story, my sister Bree laughing on cue. On the porch, where the wind slid its fingers under the eaves, sat Grandma. Thin sweater, house slippers, no blanket. Her hands trembled in her lap. The sight punched the breath from me. "Gram," I whispered. Her head turned slowly, careful with bones that had earned their caution. Then that smile, the one that could fold time, found me. "Annie," she said my childhood name, wrapped in a threadbare voice. "You came." I came. I shrugged out of my duty jacket and wrapped it around her. Heat bled from me into her. The cop in me did inventory skin. Pale lips tinged blue, shivering, persistent, alert, and oriented, too polite to complain. The granddaughter in me wanted to tear the door from its hinges. "Why are you out here?" I asked. She fluttered a hand. "Fresh air." Inside, Tommy's punchline landed. Laughter rolled through the glass. "How long?" I asked. "Oh, don't fuss," she said. "They're busy. It's a party." They're busy? It's a party? 3 years of transfers flashed behind my eyes for Grandma's care. Meals, meds, heat. Those dollars had tasted like peace when I sent them. Now, they tasted like ash. My phone buzzed. "Sergeant Ruiz? You good LT, need backup." I typed all good. "Merry Christmas." Then slid my arms under Grandma. She weighed less than my vest. When I lifted, a small sound left her throat. Not pain. Relief. "Annie dear," she breathed, "your mother will be cross." "She'll live," I said. The door handle gave nothing. Locked? Of course. The house that kept the heat in kept us out. I set Grandma against my chest and knocked 3 measured raps. Footsteps. The deadbolt slid. The door opened 4 inches, just wide enough for manners. Mom's face filled the cracked lipstick a brave holiday red. For a heartbeat, she didn't understand what she was seeing. Then her expression arranged itself into surprise, then annoyance, then that brittle smile that had tucked me in and cut me down for years. "Anna," she said, "you should have told us." I wanted to see Grandma. "She's resting," Mom said. "In the cold." Her eyes flicked past me. "She likes the porch." Dad leaned into view, chin set. "Lose the attitude," he said. "It's Christmas." Tommy's grin arrived, then faltered when he noticed my jacket around Grandma's shoulders. Bree hovered behind them with an apology dying on her tongue. I didn't answer. There wasn't an answer that wouldn't start a fire I couldn't put out. I shifted, set my heel, and drove my shoulder into the wood. The frame cracked and swung. Heat rolled over us, cinnamon and roast. Steam lifted where winter met hearth around Grandma. Conversation died like a candle under a glass. I stepped over the threshold, letting the badge hang where they could see it. I didn't raise my voice. "Move," I said, and the wall split, Mom to one side, Dad to the other, my siblings backing up with glasses, clutched like talismans. The living room looked smaller than memory. Stockings with names hung on the mantel, Dad, Mom, Tommy, Bree. No stocking for Grandma. The omission roared louder than the fire. Tommy tried first. "Annie, we were just..." "Don't," I said. Bree's eyes shone. We didn't mean... Don't! Silence gathered between us like black ice. I heard the thermostat click. I heard Grandma's teeth chatter, once then settle. I heard my heart knock in my throat. The cop in me counted details for a report I never wanted to write. Environment warm and festive. Victim found outside at 31 Fahrenheit without adequate covering. Family present, signs of neglect. Funding provided by reporting party. The granddaughter in me saw a summer memory blanket fort. Thunder outside a flashlight under our chins, while Grandma turned shadows into stories that made fear gentle. Those two selves stood shoulder to shoulder and agreed on one word. Enough. I adjusted my grip and faced them. Their eyes skittered, looking anywhere but at the truth in my arms. I let the silence stretch. When I finally spoke, my voice was steady, the kind that carries in courtrooms. I spoke 6 words. The air changed. The room shrank. Champagne dulled. Someone whispered, "Oh, God!" Dad's mouth opened and closed. Mom's hand flew to her pearls. Tommy swore. Bree started to cry. I didn't wait for defense. I shifted Grandma higher and turned toward the door. Winter reached in as I opened it. Behind me, the house crackled with a new kind of fire, the kind that eats through stories and leaves only facts. Outside, the night swallowed us in quiet. Snow pebbled the sidewalk with a soft hiss. I tucked Grandma closer and let the breath I'd been holding go. "Where to, Annie?" Grandma asked. "Someplace that remembers what the word family means," I said. We moved through the cold like a promise being kept. When I was 9 years old, thunder cracked over our little house on Maple Street. My brother hid under the covers, my sister screamed, and my mother snapped at us to be quiet. But Grandma? She pulled a quilt around her shoulders, grabbed a flashlight, and crawled into the blanket fort I had built in the living room. "Storms," she whispered, shining the light under her chin, "are just the sky telling stories." I forgot to be afraid. That was Grandma's gift. She turned fear into something small enough to hold in your hands. Even after I grew older, even when the world outside got louder and meaner, Grandma was my still point. She made grilled cheese with too much butter. She knew when I was lying, but she let me learn the lesson myself. When my father barked that I was ungrateful, she would tilt her head, lay a hand on my cheek and say, "You're worth more than anger." It's strange, isn't it? The way love doesn't shout. Love just waits steady as the ticking of a clock until you need it. I grew up in a house where shouting was common currency. Dad barked about bills. Mom snapped about appearances. Tommy and Bree learned fast that laughing at his jokes and complimenting her hair got them what they wanted. Me, I asked questions. I pushed back. I signed up for the army, then the academy, and finally the badge. My father said I was embarrassing him by wearing a uniform that wasn't dress blues or a suit. My mother told me no one wanted a daughter who carried a gun instead of a purse. But Grandma pinned my cadet badge on with hands that trembled and her eyes spilled proud tears. "You'll do good," she said, "because you remember what pain feels like." That night, I promised myself she would never feel pain because of me. Fast forward to Christmas Eve. 31 degrees, no blanket, her body shaking like leaves in November. My blood went cold because in one snapshot, I saw decades of lies. They hadn't just neglected her tonight. They had been erasing her day by day while cashing the checks I sent. It all made sense now, the extra car in the driveway, the remodeled kitchen, the vacations posted online. Meanwhile, Grandma's hands had grown thinner, her clothes older. Every transfer I made in her name had bought them another bottle of champagne. Standing there, holding her close, I remembered the countless times she gave me what little she had. When I was 12, she slipped me quarters for the arcade, telling me not to tell Mom. When I was 16 and Dad found out I'd applied for the academy, she sat with me on the porch and told me not to apologize for wanting more. And now, she had been sitting out here in the cold because they couldn't be bothered to give her a chair by the fire. "Annie," she murmured against my jacket, "don't be too hard on them." Her voice cracked something in me. Too hard I'd barely begun. I wanted to tell her everything I'd seen in my job, the bruises hidden under sleeves, the silent tears of elders left in squalor while their children pocketed pensions. We called it elder abuse in the reports. 3 words that carried the weight of felony charges. But behind the words were stories like hers. Souls treated as inconvenient cast aside while the world pretended not to notice. I had seen strangers do it. Now it was my own blood. And here was the cruel twist. Grandma, even in her suffering, still defended them. Still made excuses. That was her way. She believed family could be forgiven, that love was heavier than betrayal. I looked at her small face, lips pale, but smiling at me, and I realized why this hurt worse than any crime scene I'd worked. Because she deserved better. Because she had made me the person who wore this badge, and the badge meant nothing if I couldn't defend her. Inside, I could still hear the muffled rise and fall of voices, my family laughing, oblivious. The glass walls of warmth and privilege separated them from the frost that had been gnawing at her bones. And something in me hardened. I whispered into her hair, "They'll answer for this, Graham. I swear it." She patted my chest, weak but steady. "Promise me you won't lose yourself, Annie. Don't let anger take you." I closed my eyes, because I knew anger was already in me, curling like smoke. But I also knew something else. There's a difference between anger and justice. Anger burns quick and leaves ashes. Justice, when done right, leaves scars in the guilty and safety for the innocent. I wanted both. That's when I shifted. Her weight turned back to the door and squared my shoulders. For once in my life, I wasn't going to argue or plead or try to make them see me. I was going to make them see her. And when I kicked that door open, I carried not just a frail old woman, but every promise she had ever whispered into my bones. The living room looked the same, but it felt foreign. The tree twinkled in gold ribbons, presents stacked high beneath. Stockings lined the mantel, Dad, Mom, Tommy, Bree, but no stocking for Grandma. That detail sliced through me sharper than any blade. Dad set his glass down with deliberate force, like a judge with a gavel. "Anna," he said, voice dipped in disdain. "What's the meaning of this?" I adjusted my hold on Grandma and let my badge glint under the firelight. "The meaning," I said evenly, "is that she's freezing on your porch while you toast yourselves." Mom gasped as though I had cursed. "That's not fair. She wanted air." Grandma stirred in my arms. "Don't fuss, Annie." "Quiet, Gram," I said softly, then louder. "Air 31 degrees isn't air. It's a death sentence." Tommy chuckled nervously. "Come on, sis. Don't be so dramatic." We just stepped away for a second. I cut him off. I've seen hypothermia take people half her age in half the time. My eyes scanned the room, taking inventory like I would on a call, flushed cheeks from drink, glistening food on plates, laughter residue in the air. "You were in here sipping champagne while she shook like a leaf." Bree wrung her hands. "We didn't mean—" "Intent doesn't matter. Impact does." I shifted Grandma, her head resting against me, and caught the tremor in her lips. Dad crossed his arms. "You always were dramatic. Always looking for a fight. This is Christmas Eve. Don't come barging in here accusing your family." I met his stare. Family protects the vulnerable. Family doesn't leave them on a porch like forgotten furniture. For a moment, no one spoke. The fire cracked. Mom's hand clutched her necklace. Tommy poured himself another drink as though alcohol could drown accountability. Grandma whispered, "Please, Annie, it's not worth." But it was worth everything. I scanned the stockings again, the names in embroidered red. The absence of hers screamed louder than their protests. "You erased her," I said. My voice shook, not with weakness, but with fury. "You've been erasing her for years." Mom frowned. "We haven't?" "You think I don't notice?" I snapped. All the transfers I made for her care, where did it go? Because it didn't buy her warmth. It bought your vacations, your remodels, your champagne. Tommy raised his glass. "Now hold on." "Shut up," I said, sharper than I meant, but true all the same. Dad slammed his hand against the armrest. "You don't talk to your brother that way in my house." "Your house?" I barked a laugh. "Built on my money I sent for her. You paraded it as generosity while treating her like a burden." Silence thickened. the kind that falls in interrogation rooms just before a confession cracks. Bree started to cry. We thought you'd never know. There it was, the slip. You're right, I said. I didn't know. Not until tonight. But now I do. And now, there's no going back. Dad straightened, trying to reclaim control. You're not going to lecture us in our home? Put her down, go back to your shift, and mind your own damn business. That was it. The line between cop and granddaughter fused. This is my business. It became my business the second I saw her lips turning blue while you toasted yourselves. I let the words fall like a gavel, elder abuse. Tommy snorted, "Oh, give me a break." Elder abuse? I repeated louder, colder. It's a charge, a felony, neglect of a dependent adult. And I've got enough evidence right here to start the report. Their faces shifted then. Pale, tight, the smugness leaking out like air from a punctured tire. Mom whispered, "Anna, please." I held her gaze. You wanted air. Let's see how you breathe when the law knocks on your door. The silence that followed was different now. Not defensive, not mocking. Fear had entered the room subtle and sharp. Grandma touched my arm, frail fingers trembling. Annie, let it be. But I couldn't. Not yet. I looked at each of them one by one. Dad's jaw working, Mom's lips quivering, Tommy's swagger gone, Bree's mascara streaking her cheeks. These were not my enemies in uniform. These were the people who had raised me or claimed to, and they were strangers. I said 6 words. They waited breathless. She's safe. Elder abuse report filed. It was like striking a match in a room of gas. Tommy cursed and dropped his glass liquid bleeding across the carpet. Mom clutched at Dad, whispering, "No, no, no." Bree sank into the couch. Dad surged forward as though he might grab me, but one look at the badge on my chest stopped him cold. Their faces went white. I shifted Grandma against me, turned toward the door, and let the night swallow us again. The fire snapped behind me, but no one laughed now. In the dark, I whispered to her, "They can't hide anymore, Graham. Not from me, not from the law." The cold bit deeper as I stepped off the porch. My boots cracked the ice that had formed along the steps, each sound sharp final. Behind me, the door slammed shut, but not before I caught the panic rising in their voices. Shouts overlapped, glass shattered, and the champagne bubble of their perfect night burst. Grandma stirred in my arms. "Annie," she whispered, "put me down. I can walk." "No," I said firmly, "you've walked enough. Tonight I carry you." She sighed, her head resting against my shoulder, like it had all those nights I'd fallen asleep against her on the couch as a child. "They didn't mean harm," she murmured. My jaw tightened. Intent doesn't erase consequences. The snow squeaked under us as I crossed the yard heading for my car. My cruiser sat half a block down its black and white frame, catching the glow of Christmas lights strung across porches. Neighbors peeked through curtains as we passed. They saw the badge, the old woman in my arms, and the storm on my face, and they turned away, pretending not to notice, just like always. When I eased Grandma into the passenger seat, she flinched at the cold vinyl. I cranked the heater until it roared, and only then did I allow myself to breathe. Dispatch buzzed faintly on the radio. Routine calls, domestic disputes, noise complaints, nothing out of the ordinary, but inside me, everything had shifted. I looked at Grandma's thin hands folded in her lap. Hands that had once kneaded bread, brushed my hair, stitched every Halloween costume I'd ever worn. They trembled now, not just from the cold, but from the weight of what had happened. "You're safe," I told her. "That's all that matters." But my words rang hollow even to me, because I knew safety wasn't just about the cold. Safety meant dignity, respect, and those had been stripped from her long before tonight. Inside the house, the shouting had turned frantic. Through the frosted glass, I could almost see the scene, Dad barking orders, Mom wringing her hands, Tommy pacing, Bree crying. The mask had cracked and fear seeped through. Report filed. Dad would repeat as if saying the words out loud could undo them. Elder abuse. Tommy would sneer, trying to laugh it off, but his voice would tremble. Mom would cling to him, whispering, "What if she really did it?" They were unraveling. I shifted the gear into drive, but I didn't press the gas. My hands gripped the wheel knuckles white. I was torn. One part of me screamed to march back and slap cuffs on each of them and drag them to the station. Another part whispered of blood ties, of holidays, of Grandma's voice pleading for peace. "You okay, Annie?" Grandma asked softly. I looked at her, at the way her eyes still carried warmth despite everything. "I don't know," I admitted. "I've arrested strangers for less. Tonight it's my own family." Her smile was sad, tender. That's the hardest kind of justice. The heater hummed, filling the silence. Outside, snowflakes drifted like falling ash. Back in the house, chaos climbed. I imagined them scrambling, debating whether to chase me, whether to call me back, whether to destroy evidence that was nothing more than the truth of their own neglect. Every second that ticked by, the reality of consequences pressed harder on their chests. And in that moment, I realized this was their breaking point. Not mine. Theirs. Grandma reached over, her frail fingers brushing my hand. "Don't let hate eat you, Annie. Promise me." Her touch thawed something in me. I closed my eyes, remembering every bedtime story, every bowl of soup, every whispered prayer she'd made for me when the rest of the house was too loud. "I promise to protect you," I said. "That's the only promise I can make." I put the car into gear and pulled away, tires crunching over snow. The house grew smaller in the rearview mirror, its lights still glowing like nothing had changed. But inside, I knew everything had. Half a mile down, I pulled into the precinct lot. The building stood quiet, wreaths on the doors, but the duty light glowed steady. I carried Grandma inside, where warmth wrapped around us, not just from heaters, but from the nods of officers who lifted their chins in silent respect. "All tea," one of them said. "You good?" I looked down at her, then back up. "We're good," I said. Behind me, somewhere in that house, my family was still unraveling. Panic would give way to fear, fear to desperation. They would realize the truth that the report wasn't just a threat. It was a promise. And for the first time in years, the scales felt balanced. Back on Maple Street, the fire still glowed, but the warmth had bled out of the room. My 6 words hung heavier than the stockings on the mantel. "She's safe. Elder abuse report filed." Dad paced the living room like a caged bull. His face blotched red, not from drink, but from dread. Mom sat on the edge of the couch, twisting her necklace until the chain bit into her skin. Bree cried softly into her hands, her mascara staining her palms. Tommy refilled his glass, but the tremor in his hand gave him away. "Calm down," Dad barked, though his voice cracked. "She's bluffing. She wouldn't report her own family." Mom's voice shook. "But she's a cop. If she files, if anyone checks..." "Checks what Dad demanded. We've done nothing wrong." But the lie collapsed under its own weight. Silence. Each of them knew the truth. They had left her out there not once, not twice, but countless nights, excusing it as air, as quiet time. The money that should have bought her comfort had bought them indulgence instead. Bree whispered Dad she had her badge on. I saw it. She meant it. Tommy slammed his drink down. "We'll talk to her. We'll make her stop." "How?" Bree asked. She looked at us like we were strangers. "She made us strangers," Dad growled. The 6 words echoed in every corner of that house. Elder abuse. Report filed. It wasn't just a phrase, it was a verdict waiting to drop. At the precinct, the air smelled of burnt coffee and pine-scented air freshener. A half-eaten tray of cookies sat on the counter, foil crinkled. The Christmas shift was always slow, but officers still moved with purpose, boots heavy on the linoleum. I settled Grandma into the break room chair, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. Officer Daniels brought her a mug of cocoa, steam curling in the air. "For you, ma'am," he said gently. Her eyes twinkled, shy but grateful. "Thank you, young man." Daniels grinned. "Around here, everyone's grandma on Christmas." The words softened her. For the first time that night, she looked less like a victim and more like herself. She smiled small but real. I stood in the doorway watching, pride and guilt twisted together in me, pride because she was finally safe, guilt because I hadn't seen it sooner. LT Ruiz called from the duty desk. "You want me to log a report?" The question tightened something inside me. I had said it. I had meant it. But now, the paperwork. The chain reaction, the investigation that was real. My hand brushed the badge on my chest. I thought of Dad's face turning pale. Mom's hands trembling. Blood against law. "Yes," I said finally. My voice didn't waver. "Log it." Ruiz nodded, already typing. The clack of keys sounded like nails in a coffin. Back at the house, panic mounted. "They'll take everything," Mom whispered. "The house, the money, our names will be ruined." Tommy grabbed his coat. "I'll go talk to her." Dad blocked the door. "You'll do nothing. If you show up there, it proves we're guilty." Bree sobbed. "But we are guilty." The words fell like stones. None of them wanted to admit it, but the truth sat between them undeniable. They hadn't seen Grandma as a person. They'd seen her as a burden. Worse, they had seen her as a cover story to fund their comfort. "Maybe she won't go through with it," Mom said desperately. "Maybe she'll calm down." Dad shook his head. "She's not like us. Once she says something, she means it." The 6 words echoed again. "She's safe. Elder abuse report filed." And for the first time, they realized the nightmare wasn't outside their door. It was inside their walls. At the station, Grandma sipped cocoa, her hands steadier now. "Annie," she said softly, "don't ruin your Christmas for me." I crouched in front of her. "Gram, this isn't about Christmas. This is about right and wrong." Her eyes glistened. "They're still your family." I swallowed hard. "Family doesn't leave you freezing on the porch." She looked down into her cup, her reflection rippling. "They'll be scared, Annie. Scared people do foolish things." "They should be scared," I said. The words came out sharper than I intended. She reached for my hand. Her skin was papery, but her grip was firm. "Justice matters, but so does mercy. Don't let one bury the other." Her words pierced me. I thought of every call I'd been on, every perp I'd cuffed who begged for a break, every victim who wanted punishment, and everyone who wanted forgiveness. Justice and mercy never walked easily together. And now they pulled me in opposite directions. I looked at her, this woman who had carried me through storms, with stories who had stitched love into every seam of my childhood. She deserved justice, but she also deserved peace. Ruiz approached folder in hand. Reports logged. APS will get notified in the morning. Adult Protective Services. The words landed heavy. Once they got involved, everything changed. Investigations, home visits, court hearings. I nodded. Good. But inside, I wasn't sure if it was good. Grandma smiled faintly as if reading my turmoil. "Annie, you've always carried the weight of 2 hearts, yours and mine. Just don't let mine break yours." Her words clung to me. Back at the house, the echo of 6 words rang through the walls. Here at the station, the consequences had begun. And somewhere between those 2 places, my heart braced for the storm that was coming. The phone at the duty desk rang just after midnight. Ruiz picked it up, listened, then glanced at me. "It's your folks," he said, covering the receiver. "You want me to hang up, or—" My stomach tightened. They never called me. Not for birthdays, not for graduations, not for anything but obligation. Now with 6 words hanging over them like a guillotine, suddenly they needed me. "I'll take it," I said, and Ruiz handed me the handset. Dad's voice crackled down the line. "Anna, not Annie, never again. Listen, we need to talk." I kept my tone flat. "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is," he snapped. "You can't just file a report and walk away. Do you have any idea what this could do to us? To our name, to our work?" "Yes," I said. "That's the point." Behind him, I heard Mom sobbing. Bree's voice joined, pleading. Tommy cursed, muffled. A symphony of panic. Anna Mom cried, her voice breaking through pleas. We made a mistake. Just a mistake. Don't let the state tear our family apart over one night. One night, my voice rose before I could stop it. This wasn't one night. This has been years. You've been pocketing money meant for her. You've been leaving her out like garbage while you toast yourselves. We didn't mean... Stop saying you didn't mean it, I snapped. You did it. Over and over. Intent doesn't erase impact. The silence on the line stretched, broken only by Mom's sobbing. Finally, Dad spoke again. Quieter. We'll make it right. We'll take care of her. Just tell them not to come. You can fix this, Anna. Your family. That word burned hotter than the fire in their hearth. Family. I looked across the room at Grandma, sitting small in the break room chair, sipping her cocoa. Her eyes met mine, soft, and pleading not for herself, but for them. She shook her head slightly, lips forming words only I could read. Don't destroy them. I closed my eyes. The pull was unbearable, justice dragging me one way, mercy the other. I can't undo what's been filed, I told him. The report is in. APS will follow up. That's the law. Dad swore the sound ugly and raw. You'll regret this, Anna. No, I said, my voice steady. The only thing I regret is not seeing sooner what you've done. I hung up. 3 hours later, they showed up at the station. Not in suits and pride, but in pajamas, under coats, faces pale, eyes red. They looked smaller somehow, like the fear had hollowed them out. Ruiz bristled, stepping forward. They're not supposed to be here. I'll handle it, I said. Dad started, first words tumbling fast. Anna, please, listen. Stop! My voice cut through. You had your chance to talk when Grandma was on your porch. Mom clasped her hands. We were wrong. We know that now. Please don't let the courts drag us through the mud. Think about what people will say. Tommy tried swagger. You don't want your own family in cuffs, do you? But even as he spoke, his hand shook. Bree stepped forward, tears streaking. Anna, please. We were selfish. But she's our mother, too. Don't take her away from us. I looked at them, these people who had shared my blood but not my heart. And I felt nothing but the cold I'd carried in from the porch. She's not your mother anymore, I said. Not after tonight. You lost that privilege. They flinched as if I'd struck them. Behind me, Grandma's voice rose fragile but firm. Annie. I turned. She stood in the doorway, blanket around her shoulders, her face pale but resolute. Don't, she said softly. Graham. She stepped closer, each movement slow, deliberate. They're still my children. They're still your family. Don't let anger turn you cruel. My chest tightened. They left you to freeze. I know. Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't waver, and I forgave them before you walked through that door. My throat ached. They don't deserve forgiveness. Maybe not, she whispered. But forgiveness isn't about what they deserve. It's about what we choose to carry. The silence that followed was suffocating. My family behind me desperate and broken. My grandmother before me weary but merciful. And me caught between them, badge, heavy on my chest, heart heavier still. I wanted to rage. I wanted to drag them into holding cells, make them feel every ounce of the cold they'd forced on her. But her eyes, those eyes that had calmed storms when I was 9 years old, held me. And I realized something: justice could punish them, but mercy could haunt them. Knowing they had been spared by the woman they betrayed, that would weigh on them longer than any sentence. Graham, I whispered, this could ruin everything. Their jobs, their names. She nodded. Yes, but if you push too far, it could ruin you too. Her words sank deep. Justice mattered, but so did mercy. And maybe the truest revenge wasn't prison bars, it was making them live every day with the memory of what they'd done and the grace of the woman they had wronged. I lowered my gaze. The room spun with silence. Finally, I said, the report stands. APS will come. But what happens next? Depends on how you live with what you've done. Dad swallowed hard. Mom wept harder. Tommy cursed under his breath. Bree nodded faintly as if she understood. Grandma's hand found mine. Her grip was weak, but her voice was strong. "That's enough, Annie. That's enough." And for the first time that night, I let the fire in my chest flicker just enough to breathe. The station smelled of burnt coffee and disinfectant. But to Grandma, it might as well have been a sanctuary. She sat in the break room blanket, still around her shoulders, cocoa steaming in front of her. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a poor substitute for Christmas candles, but her eyes softened anyway. "It's warm," she whispered. "That's all that matters." Officer Daniels leaned against the doorframe, grinning. "Warm and safe, ma'am. That's our specialty." Grandma's lips curved shy but genuine. "You don't have to call me ma'am, just Grandma." He chuckled. "Deal. Merry Christmas, Grandma." The room brightened. Laughter rippled through the officers, who'd gathered Ruiz Daniels, a couple rookies finishing paperwork. They nodded, lifted mugs, and in that moment, the break room became something my childhood home never had been welcoming. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching. A strange ache rose in my chest. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was relief. Relief that she could still smile, still be seen. Grandma looked around, wonder, softening her features. "You all have families of your own. Why spend Christmas here?" Ruiz shrugged. "Somebody's got to keep the city standing. Besides, this is family too." Her eyes misted. "Family," she repeated, as if tasting the word for the first time in years. I saw it then. She was no longer shrinking under their neglect. She was glowing, lifted by the respect of strangers who had chosen to treat her with dignity. "Annie," she said, turning to me, "I think I've found my people." The word struck deep. For so long I had wished for her to be cherished the way I cherished her. Now in the unlikeliest of places, the fluorescent-lit station, the break room with chipped mugs, she finally was. Oh. Meanwhile, across town panic reigned. The house on Maple Street had gone silent after our confrontation, but the silence didn't last. The fear gnawed at them louder than any carol. They imagined APS at their door, investigators combing through bank accounts, neighbors whispering. Mom sat hunched in her chair, murmuring prayers. Dad called contacts, searching for a way to smother the report. Tommy raged, blaming Bree, blaming Mom, blaming anyone but himself. Bree wept, mascara streaked down her face, whispering, "We lost her. We lost her for good." The 6 words haunted every corner. "She's safe. Elder abuse report filed." And for once, it wasn't me who carried the weight of fear. It was them. Back at the precinct, Ruiz clapped me on the shoulder. "You did right, LT." "Did I?" I asked. He studied me. "You protected her. That's the job. That's the oath. Doesn't matter if it's a stranger or your own blood. That's what makes you good at this." I swallowed. "Feels different when it's your family." He nodded. "Always does. But family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up." I looked across the room at Grandma, laughing gently, as Daniels told a story about chasing a shoplifter who got stuck in a vent. She was safe, wrapped in warmth and attention, finally at the center instead of the edge. Family. Later, I walked Grandma down the hall, the hum of the station echoing like a lullaby. "You'll sleep here tonight," I told her. Guest cot in the wellness room. Not perfect, but better than the porch. She squeezed my hand. "Perfect is overrated. Safe is enough." I helped her settle, tucking the blanket around her shoulders. She caught my wrist before I pulled away. "Annie," she said softly, "I've never been prouder of you. Not because of the badge, because of your heart." My throat tightened. "You always believed in me." She smiled. "And you proved me right." For the first time that night, I felt a measure of peace. Not total, not complete, but enough to breathe. Hours later, when the night had deepened and the snow thickened outside, I walked back into the break room. The rookies were asleep at their desks, Ruiz snoring lightly in his chair. The world was quiet. I sat alone, head in my hands, and whispered to the silence, "She's safe." And this time, it wasn't a warning. It was a truth. Morning light seeped through the precinct blinds, pale and gray. Snow still clung to the cruiser roofs outside, muffling the city in a quiet that felt unnatural. Christmas Day. For most, it meant gifts and laughter. For me, it meant waiting. Grandma stirred awake in the wellness room, her hair silver against the pillow, a faint smile tugging at her lips, as if she had dreamed of kinder places. She looked at peace. I wanted to freeze that image, hold it forever, because I knew what waited outside wasn't peace at all. It was fallout. At 9 a.m., the phone rang. Ruiz answered, listened, then looked at me. APS. They're sending an agent. They'll want statements, photos, everything. The words landed like stones. This was no longer just family drama. This was official. I went in to tell her. Grandma sat up slowly, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. "They're coming, aren't they?" she asked gently. "Yes." Her eyes searched mine. "You won't stop it." I shook my head. "I can't, and I won't." She exhaled long and steady, then let it come. On Maple Street, the panic had curdled into dread. Dad paced phone, glued to his ear, but no one answered. His contacts couldn't shield him this time. Mom sat silent, staring at the untouched tree. Tommy drank himself into a stupor, while Bree begged them all to do something. "What if they take her away from us forever?" Mom whispered. "She's already gone," Bree said bitterly, "and she's never coming back." The 6 words still haunted the house. "She's safe." Elder abuse report filed. They rang louder than carols, sharper than bells. For the first time in their lives, the control had slipped through their fingers, and they were terrified. At the precinct, the APS agent arrived just past noon. A woman in her 40s, sharp eyes softened by years of listening. She shook my hand, then crouched in front of Grandma. "Ma'am," she said gently, "I'm here to make sure you're okay. May I ask you some questions?" Grandma nodded, calm. "Ask what you need." I stayed close as the agent checked her for signs of neglect, thin sweater weight loss bruises that told of long winters endured without care. Each answer added weight to the report. The agent's pen scratched across paper, each stroke sealing what I had known in my bones: my family had failed her. When it was done, Grandma sipped the tea they brought her. "What happens now?" she asked. The agent folded her hands. "We'll investigate further. Home visits, financial reviews, interviews. If neglect is confirmed, there may be charges." Grandma's gaze drifted toward me. "And if I don't want charges?" The agent paused. "That will carry weight, but the state still has a duty. Elder abuse is serious." Grandma nodded as if she had expected nothing less. She turned back to me, her eyes heavy with both love and sorrow. "Annie, I told you not to destroy them." I clenched my fists. I didn't. They destroyed themselves. By evening, the story had spread among neighbors. Whispers moved faster than snowplows. The image of my parents' proud hosts of Christmas Eve was now shadowed by rumors they left her outside. The police were called. The daughter filed a report. Their names carried weight in that town. Now weight dragged them down. I heard through colleagues that Dad had shouted at a neighbor who asked if the rumors were true. Tommy hadn't been seen all day. Bree had called a friend in tears. Mom hadn't left the house at all. Consequences had begun, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Back at the station, Grandma joined the officers for dinner. They'd brought in takeout pizza, fried chicken, nothing fancy. But the way they pulled chairs close, shared stories, and clapped her on the shoulder made it feel like more than a meal. She laughed at their jokes, eyes sparkling. She even told one of her old stories, the one about me at age 6, putting on her glasses and declaring myself chief of police. The room erupted in laughter. I sat back watching her glow in a way she hadn't in years. And yet guilt tugged at me. Justice was moving forward, My family's lives were unraveling, and she was still asking me not to let hate consume me. Annie, she said, when the others drifted away, you can't carry both anger and love. Choose love, or the anger will hollow you out. I swallowed, but they deserve to pay. They will, she said, but let the weight of what they've lost be punishment enough. Her words echoed, and for the first time, I wondered if the true aftermath wasn't about what the law would do to them. It was about what their guilt would do. Because guilt lingers. Guilt haunts. Guilt is a prison without bars. As I looked into her eyes, I realized maybe that was the justice she wanted all along. The days that followed felt different. Not just because of the snow that blanketed the town, muffling every sound, but because something in the air had shifted. News spread in whispers. Did you hear the Tran family is under investigation? The same neighbors who once envied their champagne parties now crossed the street to avoid them. The reputation they had guarded so fiercely was crumbling not with an explosion, but with a slow, relentless unraveling. Dad stopped going to work. Mom closed the curtains and pretended no one could see through them. Tommy raged, his voice carrying into the street. Bree was the only one who cried in public, her sobs echoing down the block like an unending apology. 6 words had done this. She's safe. Elder abuse report filed. Words they would hear in their heads every time the phone rang, every time a neighbor looked too long, every time guilt clawed at their chests. And I didn't need to add a thing. Their punishment was living in the shadow of their own choices. At the precinct, Grandma's world was expanding. Officers brought her cookies from home. The rookies asked her advice on life and love as if she were their own grandmother. She took to the role naturally, offering wisdom with that gentle humor that had carried me through storms. This place, she said one evening, feels like family. Her words pierced me, not because they hurt, but because they healed. She wasn't invisible here. She wasn't a burden. She was seen. She was valued. She was loved. For years, I had thought my duty was to shield her from harm. But maybe the truer duty was to bring her into the light where others could love her too. The APS investigation moved forward. Agents reviewed bank statements, conducted interviews, asked neighbors about what they'd seen. There would be consequences, mandatory oversight, financial restrictions, perhaps even charges. My family would never escape the stain. But I didn't feel triumph. Not anymore. Just a deep, steady calm. Grandma sat beside me in the break room, her hand over mine. You've done enough, she said. Have I asked. Yes. Her smile was soft. The law will take care of what it must. Let their guilt take care of the rest. I nodded, finally understanding. Justice wasn't about vengeance. It was about balance. And balance had been restored. On New Year's Eve, a week after the night everything changed, the precinct gathered again. Pizza boxes stacked on tables, laughter filling the air. Someone had strung lights around the break room doorway. Grandma sat in the center, a paper crown on her head, courtesy of Officer Daniels. She caught my eye across the room and mouthed, "Thank you." I walked over, kneeling so we were eye level, for what I asked. "For giving me back a family?" she said. I blinked against the sting in my eyes. "You never lost me." "I know," she said, "but now I know I'll never be alone either." Her words wrapped around me like her quilts once had when thunder rolled outside and I was just a scared little girl. Later that night, when the clock struck midnight and cheers echoed through the station, I stepped outside for air. The snow was falling again, soft and endless. The street lamps painted the world in gold. I thought of my family. My blood family sitting in that house, curtains drawn tight, afraid to face the world they had once ruled with arrogance. And I thought of Grandma, inside surrounded by warmth and laughter, finally cherished the way she always should have been. That was justice. That was mercy. That was enough. As I drove Grandma home, not to Maple Street, but to my own place where she would live, from then on, she fell asleep in the passenger seat, her face peaceful. I whispered to the night, she's safe. And this time, the words weren't a warning or a threat. They were a promise. Oh, stories like this aren't just about families breaking. They're about choices. The choice to protect, the choice to forgive, the choice to redefine what family really means. If you've ever felt unseen, if you've ever had to fight to protect someone you love, know this: justice and mercy can walk together. And sometimes the strongest revenge isn't shouting or punishment. It's building a new life where love wins. If this story touched you, share it. Leave a thought for someone you love. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, subscribe and stay with us. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to know they are safe.